I'm AJ, and I welcome you all to another session of A Day in a Life of PA. And I'll be hosting this event on behalf of James Dean, who happens to be president of IIBA Ireland chapter. At IIBA Ireland, our mission is to support professionals by sharing knowledge, common terminology, and practical insights into the work that us business analysts do across different industries, sectors, tools, techniques, teams, topics, whatever it could be. That's what this series is about. And this series is a chance to give you a chance to hear directly from the other BA professional about like their typical day or their or the processes they use or the tools or techniques they use, um, the challenges or success that they have encountered, or anything else into the insights. And each month we are inviting a different BA professional to share their personal journey, highlighting the approaches they take, technologies they rely on, and real world examples from their own work. So, whether you're considering a career in business analysis or already working alongside another business analyst, or simply just looking to deepen your understanding of the role, today's session is designed to give you that clarity, the confidence, and a shared language for working effectively with business analysts. And today I'm delighted to join by Emal, who works as a consultant in Bariali Consulting and a chief product officer at BA Blocks. And without any further ado, I would like to uh, give the mic to Emal. And Emal, please, you can take over from here.
Can everybody see me? Am I good? All right, excellent. Getting lots of thumbs ups on the side here. So, folks, I have you guys on this side. And what I'm going to do is just share my screen on the other side here so that have, you can see what it is that I'm showing, but also I'm going to share the link for what I'm sharing with you inside of the chat so that you can follow along instead of having to take notes. So, if you look in the chat right now, you have a link in there. If you click on that link, you'll actually be navigated straight to exactly where I am and the screen that I'm showing for you right now. But before I do start off, I just want to make sure everybody can clearly see my screen and we'll kick things off. So if you just give me another round of thumbs ups if you can see my screen. It's basically just me right here. All right, Lisa says yes. All right, lots of thumbs ups. Great, excellent. So I want this to be an interactive session. So um, instead of just doing a presentation and speaking to you, what we'll do in this session is first I'll kind of give you a brief intro into who I am, talk a little bit about the type of work that I do as a digital transformation analyst. And then what we'll do is we'll do a quick little poll because it's a BA Bach related poll that will give us an opportunity to just kind of do a little bit of collaboration. And once we do that poll, I'll dive into the details of what it means to do strategic business analysis using examples from my own career. Okay, so right now I'm actually on a client engagement. I've blocked this hour in my calendar to come here and speak to you folks today about this subject. So everything I'm talking about is stuff that I'm doing in my daily life as we speak, basically. So let's make it an interactive session as much as we possibly can. So um, my name is Emal. Uh, what I what we'll do is, oh, actually, before I do start, can everybody access the link? Make sure that they can see this, because I'll just quickly show you what is on this link here. You'll need to click on this link to participate in the polls. Okay. And there's a bunch of notes down here that I'm going to be referring to as we move forward as well. Okay. So there's some visuals that we're going to talk about. So I just want to make sure you all have access to that before we kick off. All right. Lots of thumbs ups. Great. Excellent. So my name is Emal Bariali. I have been a business analyst since 2005. Okay. And so right now, where I've arrived at my career right now is that after having done 20 years of business analysis, almost 21 years now since we're in 2006, but after having done 20 years of business analysis, I've kind of gotten a really good idea of what this entire profession is about, because I started my career really just kind of doing non-strategic business analysis work, let's just say, and we'll see. I'll give you a lot more details about what that actually means. But I started my career really at the spot that most business analysts start their careers, which is usually just around following a lead analyst around on a project, helping them with the deliverables that they need you to produce for them, right? And so the very first project I did was I was working with a project manager turned business analyst turned project manager. Basically, he was a PM and BA, and he was essentially leading me through my first major project, giving me tasks to do. Okay, so that's kind of where I started my BA career in 2005. Since the last 20 years, I have very slowly, just kind of steadily built up my career to the point where I started to do a lot more what we call tactical business analysis, and eventually made my way up into doing a lot more of the strategic business analysis tasks that you might see in the BA BOC if you cruise through them. Okay, so right now I'm working as a consultant, but my educational background is really around systems design. In my undergrad, I also took there was a lot of business courses essentially. So I got a lot of domain knowledge in my undergrad, and I learned a lot about IT. I learned a lot about software development here, and then I did my master's degree where I learned more about business architecture and solution architecture. So my career, the way that I've kind of designed my BA career, was just making sure that I understand all of this stuff, right? I did all of my education, and then I got my first job, and that's where I started down the path of getting the 20 plus years experience that I have right now. Okay. Today, I'm also a BA educator and a coach, in addition to being a consultant. So we have a series of courses that I design for our students, and our students sign up for those courses depending on where they are at in their BA careers, whether they're at the start or whether we have a lot of senior business analysts coming in to take a lot of our advanced courses because they're trying to level up their career. So we do a lot of course development and a lot of one-on-one coaching to make sure that I can share a lot of the knowledge that I've learned over the years with the folks that are trying to build their BA careers now. Okay, my career is very well established, but there's always new people coming into our profession, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to explain to them how this profession really works. All right, and that's why we're going to talk about strategic business analysis today. Now, as before we dive into me talking about like the three different altitudes here, let's do a quick little poll. Okay, so if you click on that link that I shared with you, and I'll quickly share it with you again, if for those of you who are just coming in, I'll just drop that right in the chat. If you click on that link, what you're going to get is you're going to land on this page, scroll down to the poll here, and just click on this link right here. Okay, I'll show you what happens the minute you click on it by clicking on it myself as well. So let me click on that there. The minute I click on that, I'm brought out to here and I can't see anybody's names, so don't worry about giving the wrong answer if to this question. But as part of this poll, what I'd like for us to do is to come over to the side over here, grab one of these sticky notes, and place them somewhere along this axis here to give us a sense of whether you think that the task or the output from the BA-BOC, whether you think that's a strategy analysis task or output, or whether you think it's not a strategy analysis task or output. Okay, and I'll read them out here just so we all have a good idea. But you guys can all just come and grab one of these and just move it to wherever you want it to be. And then we can have a bit of a discussion around which one of these are and are not strategy analysis tasks. And that kind of forms the basis for the rest of what I'm going to explain to you in this conversation. Okay, so yeah, take a minute or so, and I'll just keep this up on the screen. I'm just seeing folks moving things around. So we have one task. Looks like analyze the current state is pretty firmly in a strategy analysis. Oh, somebody made this note way bigger. What I'll do is, whoever this is, I'm just going to bring this note over here and just make it smaller for you, just so that just so it's the right size. But you can grab this note again if you want. To grab the note, just grab it by the borders instead of the corners or these little labels here, and you can just kind of move it around to anywhere. So I'll put this back, and if you still want to put this in strategy analysis, you can grab it again and put it in there. Let's try to get all of these tasks in either strategy analysis or not in strategy analysis. And I'll just keep an eye. I'll just keep an eye on this to see where things land, basically. So looks like we have our user stories and our wireframes in the not category over here. We have our define change strategy, define future state, define future state, define current state in the is strategy analysis. And we have two more over here. We have business case and data models left over. So let's see if you folks can, just jump in and grab it and throw it somewhere on the board to see where those two end up. All right, looks like business case has moved into strategy analysis. And data models is not strategy analysis. All right. So let's go through these one by one, and we'll talk a little bit about whether these are in the right categories or not. Good news is, just based on what I'm seeing right now, you guys understand the BA-BOC inside out, because all the answers that you're seeing here are correct. So if I was to kind of look at this and start to kind of sequence this out in the way that projects typically run for the client work that I do, I'll sequence this out for you guys so you guys can see the sequence in which large scale programs tend to execute. Okay. Normally, so we have two defined future states here. I'll take one of them out. Normally, was there there's analyze current state over here. Okay, I'll reorganize these in a little bit more detail because it's just to sequence them out for you. But normally, every time I start a new client engagement, one of the first things I have to do is, and I'll bring this over to strategy analysis over here for us, right? I have to do what is called current state analysis. Okay, that analyzing the current state is usually the first step on every project that we should be running. Second step is, so define the future state. Third activity oftentimes is to do a business case. Once the business case is done, then we have to define our change strategy. And once all of those are done, then all of these other tasks that I'm looking at over here, all of these outputs that you're seeing over here, they fit into a bit of a different category that I like to call elaboration. Okay, hopefully this makes sense, all right? Because all of the tasks that we're seeing here is actually what we define as strategy analysis or tactical analysis. Okay, so I know that here we have strategy versus not strategy, right? In between strategy and these tasks here, there's oftentimes a another space called the tactical layer. Okay, so let's talk about this and just make sure we understand that entire picture of how these areas kind of relate to each other. Okay, to start the
Sorry,
conversation, yes,
sorry, Emal, to interrupt you. I have an announcement actually. So throughout the session, please feel free to turn your camera if you guys like, and you can always put your questions in the chat, and I'll take it up from the Q&A tab or email if email can take it. That's good, or else I'm gonna take it. Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
that sounds
Over
good.
to you. Yeah,
And thanks
over to
for
you.
that. Thanks for that, Ajay, because I forgot to mention too, folks. If you have questions, just drop them in the chat. I'm keeping an eye over here on this side to see if you guys have any questions about any of the stuff that I'm saying here. I tend to get a little bit too deep into the conversation, and so I'll just keep talking. Sometimes I'll forget. But if you do have a question, just drop it in the chat or just raise your hand, and Ajay and I are going to keep an eye on that to make sure that we can answer your questions as we're moving forward here. Okay. But as I was saying, the difference, right? In if you look into the BA BOK, you'll see that there are a number of different tasks that are considered strategic tasks, and rightfully so. Many of you identified the stuff that is not strategic, and those tasks, things like user stories, wireframes, right? All of these, a couple of things that we saw over here. These items here, rightfully so, fall into the operational part of our jobs. Okay, the way that business analysis works is that most business analysts, when they start their careers new, they tend to start here. Okay, they tend to start as operational business analysts, writing things like user stories, right? So if you're starting as a new business analyst, probably one of the biggest tasks that you're going to get, one of the first tasks that you're going to get, so you're going to be brought into a project and you're going to be asked to start writing user stories, collecting user stories from your stakeholders and detailing them out using acceptance criteria or whatever other mechanism you're using to elaborate your user story, right? Most business analysts tend to start their careers here using writing user stories and many of the other tools and techniques that are available that you see in the BA BOK, and some that are not even in the BA BOK tend to get used. But generally speaking, this is where most business analysts start their careers. Okay. Strategic analysis comes into the picture usually a little bit later in your career, because when you first start writing user stories, what is happening here is that your management, okay, is getting you acquainted into the digital transformation lifecycle. Because the, when you get to the point where you're actually writing user stories or creating wireframes, etc., there is already so much other work that has already been done before before you were brought on to actually start writing those user stories. And that's what strategic analysis is. Okay. Part of the reason why it's a little bit dark here is because most business analysts don't even understand a lot of what happens before they're brought on, right? They don't understand what happens at this level before they're brought on to start writing the user stories in for the projects that they're brought on to. That right there is what we can start talking about, so that you understand how things actually work, because it is a little bit counterintuitive, right? Oftentimes when you start your career here at the operational level, right, you you start your career here and you may move into you'll start your career at the operational level. You may move into the tactical level once your management has trusts that you have already mastered this part. They'll start to give you tasks that kind of fall a little bit more into this world, and once they feel like you've kind of mastered this, then and only then a select few analysts get the opportunity to actually enter into this space. Okay? And a lot of that depends on really your performance as a business analyst when you start your career, right? How quickly you can kind of progress your way into here, your performance, and how you position yourself within management. Okay, so it's a little bit counterintuitive because the digital transformation process actually goes the other way around, right? Management is typically doing a lot of the strategic analysis before they get into the tactical levels of analysis work. Okay. Bef- and then after that is when they bring the new business analysts on board to get them to do the operational work, right? So it's a little bit counterintuitive because your career actually starts here, right? But the digital transformation process actually starts over here. Oftentimes, before a company even decides to start a project, right? There's a lot of conversations they have to have up here before they decide to do a business case and to do a lot of the architecture work, and before, well before you even know that there is a project that's coming down the pipe. Okay, so it's a little bit counterintuitive. Let's talk a little bit more deeply about what's actually involved materially, right, in each of these different stages that we have. Okay, if I scroll up a little bit, you'll see that when you look at the operational business analysis work, okay, operational work is typically very detailed, talking about user level requirements that the project is supposed to deliver to, right? So you'll see things like user stories, wireframes, right? Detailed product specifications that can include acceptance criteria, screen specifications, business rules, data models. A lot of these things, okay, a lot of these things that you're seeing here, those things all kind of are part of our operational work. Now, if you're new to business analysis, okay, chances are you already know what all of these things are and you've produced them. If you're new to business analysis, chances are that you have probably never participated in that activity or output, right? RFP or RFQ. And I know that the BA box says that these are strategic tasks, but when you actually look at them from the digital transformation lens, they fall a little bit more into the tactical layer of the organization because they're actually these steps here, right? Current state and future state, even they come after. They come after some of the strategic activities, what I consider to be truly strategic activities, right? And so there is this tactical layer that kind of sits in between strategy and operations. Okay, it might not necessarily be as clear in a lot of the stuff that we see inside of our body of knowledge and everything, but in reality, most organizations tend to look at their own digital transformations in 3 stages, not just 2. Okay, all of that said, right? Let's take a step back and understand how the process works as a whole. Okay, anytime a company is even thinking about initiating a project, they have a number of strategic questions that they have to answer way before we start writing user stories down here. A lot of those questions are, is this problem even worth solving? Okay. Strategic analyst's job up here oftentimes is to help management arrive at the answers that they need to say, look, we know we have a challenge here, but is there enough of a what we call is there enough of a return on investment on this? Should we even spend any time thinking about this problem, right? That is what strategic analysis is. Because in most corporations, in most large organizations, whether they be private or public sector, there are so many different challenges going on that management can't solve all of them, right? And strategic analysis is the analysis work that gets done to help management figure out which problems, which challenges are going to remain challenges, and which ones they're willing to invest money into to try to resolve, right? Those decisions get made way usually behind a curtain over here that a lot of analysts at this level and even this level don't have visibility into, right? But if you're the type of analyst, if you get your career to a point where you can get that kind of a seat at the table with management, with executives, with leadership, what you're doing is you're employing a lot of these skills that you see inside the BA box. These a lot of oftentimes there's a lot of these types of skills that you have to deploy to help them make those decisions. Okay, and so there's a lot involved here. To show you an example, right? What you're seeing on the screen now, this is the actual work plan that I'm using to deliver for my clients right now. Okay. When we say strategic, right, you see if I can zoom in here a little bit more, okay, you'll see that a couple of months ago, I did what is called discovery kickoff. And I helped produce a discovery report for my clients. Took a couple of weeks. Right here. That discovery report is the current state analysis. Okay. That is the current state of their business operations. So as part of the work that I'm doing for my client right now is I do a little bit of, oh, what happened to our image here? I do a little bit of current state analysis. Okay. And then what you see here is that everything that you see here in blue, all of this is future state. Okay. That's all future state design. Now, there's a couple of other work streams here. We have possibly some software vendors coming on board. There's some data cleansing work that has to happen. Those are more advanced, but generally speaking, the discovery work happens here. Okay. Future state design work happens here. The result of the future state design work, oftentimes it requires some architecture work. These two elements that you see here, these two deliverables that I have to produce for my client, this one right here goes well beyond business analysis. Okay. The solution architecture work that I'm doing, this is a way more of an advanced skill, but it's also part of future state, right? So this is once you become advanced enough, you start to move from doing doing a lot of the operational work here, okay, to current and future state, right? Current state, then to, let's grab this marker. You go from here, okay, into current state and into future state. Sorry, this is acting a little funny here. So you go from here into current state. Oh, it is. My pen's kind of giving up on me a little bit here. Bear with me, folks. Let me just make sure I will do a refresh on this to make sure it's comes through a little bit more clearly. But we go from here, okay, into current state, then into future state, right? And from once that tactical work is done, then you can come down into a lot of the architecture related work that tends to be a lot more of a strategic type of role. So even though we see that our analysts here kind of start their careers here and their careers move up, right? this way, the strategic and tactical tasks that happen oftentimes kind of happen interchangeably. So you do a bit of strategy, you go into tactical level to see whether it makes sense, go back into strategy, etc. Okay, and that's exactly what this shows us, because what we're seeing here is that I have a couple of strategic conversations over here. My current and my future state over here is tactical. Okay, but then I have to produce a couple of more strategic elements for my clients to make sure that they're getting what they need. Okay, all of this comes way before we do our detailed functional specifications and produce our BRD and anything else that happens, right? All of this stuff that you're seeing here on the screen right now, this is all behind this curtain over here. Okay, curtain, if I was to kind of extend it, it would kind of be extended down to about here or so. Okay, all of that stuff is happening right now on my program, right? On this, I'm so early in this project that there isn't even a project manager on this project right now. Okay, that's how behind the curtain it is. Is not only do we not have any business analysts, we don't even have the project manager onboarded yet. Okay, that's where all of the strategy analysis work happens. Okay, see a comment here. Kian says, is it always such a standard flow of tasks? I feel like some tasks inform others as you start completing them. You sometimes need to rethink depending on if options are no longer viable or new opportunities are identified. Not sure if you have found this in your experience. So, Kian, yes, absolutely. Even though this looks very linear, right? And a lot of this stuff looks very linear, oftentimes you have to kind of bounce around. You have to bounce around between current state to future state. Okay? Kind of bounce around back and forth between these activities. They don't as linearly as I want them to be, and I've done a lot of current state analysis over here. As I'm doing my future state, okay, this is where we're at right now. We're about right here in the program. But as I'm doing my future state, I'm still having current state conversations because I didn't go as deep into current state, right, in this block as I needed to, right? And so, as linearly as we try to execute on all of this stuff, it's impossible to do everything one thing at a time. Okay? So, in my future state, there during my future state over here in the blue, there's still a little bit of a lot of current state conversations going on. I actually just made a LinkedIn post about it this today about how my client yesterday just told me, he said, "Hey, there are certain areas of the current state that I want you to spend a little bit more time on, even though we're deep into future state design. The work that I did here, right, didn't capture all of the elements of the current state that he wanted me to capture." Okay? And so it provided me a little bit of direction. And so what I'm doing today and tomorrow is I'm actually following up with some of our stakeholders to get clarity in all those areas of the current state, even though project wise, I'm deep into future state design. That makes sense? Hopefully that answers your question, Kian. If not, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask. Chai says, apologies if this has been mentioned. Will a recording of the session be shared after the session? Maybe Ajay, you can take that question. I'll look for some more questions that we have here. And Kian says, yep, that makes sense. Thank you. You're very welcome. Robert, great to see you in the chat here. Documentation. Robert Snyder says, documentation that hinders every subsequent project. Robert, me and you, we need to have another conversation again because I have some complaining to do, I would say, about about me and Robert are usually on the same page about most of this stuff. And for the folks in the chat here, if you don't know Robert, he's on LinkedIn as well, and he publishes a ton of materials that actually really focus on this part of the picture instead of this part of the picture. Okay. Um, Kike, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right. Um, I liked and commented on that LinkedIn post because as is analysis is so important, but sometimes underestimated. Thank you so much for liking and commenting that LinkedIn post for the folks that are. I'll pull it up in a couple of minutes and show you guys what that LinkedIn post was all about. But before we do that, I just want to make sure we kind of understand. We kind of understand what strategic analysis actually means. Okay, so are there any questions about the difference between the work that a strategic analyst up here does versus what an operational BA does? I'll look for some hands. If you have hands, if you put up your hand, or even if you drop it in the chat, I'll answer your questions. But it looks like we're good. What I'd like to do now is talk a little bit before we pull up that LinkedIn post and we can talk a little bit more about current state analysis. I'd like to talk about what the operational, the tactical, and the strategic levels look like within the context of an actual organization. Okay. At the very top of the organization, you see, okay, and everything that I'm showing you here, folks, these images and the people that show up in these images, a lot of these are just characters that we have inside of our courses. So this is Justin, for example. This is Ingrid, right? This is Shauna. The way that we structure our courses is that it's very story based. So in our alpha course, for example, we have Ingrid, who is onboarding Justin, who just joined the company, just joined the IT organization. And so her boss has told her to get him onboarded and teach him how to be a really good analyst, right? And so a lot of these characters that you're seeing here, these are the characters that we have inside of our courses. But you'll see that Ingrid, right? Ingrid and Shauna kind of land somewhere in here in the organization. But many of their stakeholders, right? Many of Shauna's stakeholders here, because she is more of a strategic analyst, she doesn't just talk to the people that are kind of at her level in the organization. Her stakeholder analysis, right? On large size programs, her stakeholder analysis may have people at the vice president level, they might have people at the director level, they might have people at the team lead and at the manager level down here, right? A strategic analyst, even though they may report into a manager, right, means that they have way more access to a lot of the stakeholders across the different levels, right? In mid-sized organizations, you might even have your analysts talking straight with the CEO of the company. Okay, smaller to mid-sized organizations. In large enterprises, that typically doesn't happen, right? But the job of a strategic analyst is to make sure that there is full alignment on the project, up and down, their chain of command, across the operational, the tactical, and the strategic levels of the organization. When you look at this picture from this lens, you start to understand what it means to be at the strategic level, right? Strategic level folks inside of the organization typically are at the C level, right? So we have our chief technology officer here, the CIO and CTO. They might be at the executive VP level. They might be at the let me clear that out. They might be at the VP level, right? These are the folks. that are making the decisions in the organization on whether the project is ever going to even get funded, whether that project's ever going to materialize inside of the organization. And so as a Shana, to support that decision for these folks up here, you have to engage in more advanced activities. Okay, a day in my life as a strategic slash tactical analyst, I'll explain it to you right now. Is that today, what I'm doing today, right after I hop off of this meeting, I'm having a team meeting with our internal discovery team, discovery and solutioning team, to make sure that we have clarity around these two work streams right here, our analytics and our security admin. There's a lot of work that I have to do to help our discovery team kind of figure that out, so that we understand what a lot of the these pieces will look like when we get a little bit farther down the line. You have any questions? A few questions in the chat here. Kiana asks, what steps would you recommend for someone who has actually recently been given a strategic role for their learning and development? My answer to that question always is that if you have you're newly given the opportunity to move into more of a strategic analyst role, best thing to do is to find the person in your company that is doing that job and doing it well, and just stick to them and learn everything that they can possibly teach you. Despite a lot of the education that I've had here, right? All of this education, I'll tell you that even though this gave me a firm foundation, most of what I learned was by me just shadowing the more senior people in my organization as best as I possibly could. Okay. Kian says, what if there isn't one in the company? If there isn't one in the company, your best bet is to try to look for, is to rely on education and find yourself a good coach. Okay. Education will give you a good theoretical foundation in what needs to be done, but you need somebody who's actually done the job and can help you answer the very specific challenges that pop up in your day-to-day work, right? And kind of help you guide and mentor you through. Okay? If you don't have somebody like that inside your company, oftentimes you have to kind of find that person externally, which costs you a little bit of money. But the investment, if you find the right person to help you with that type of a role, the investment is well worth it, because the income difference between a person at this level and people at this level is hugely different. So any investment you make into your coach now should pay off over the long run. I was lucky enough in my own career to be surrounded by people, so I didn't actually have to go down the coaching route, but I also had the educational foundation to know what to ask them. I had the educational foundation to know what kind of things to try to inquire about, the type of things to look for as I'm shadowing this more senior person inside of the company. And so if you don't have all of that, I think you want to make sure you find yourself a good coach. But first option is always just look inside your own company first, because you can get a lot of that coaching probably for free if you're capable of finding somebody who's kind of willing to take you under their wing and to show you how things actually happen, right? Oftentimes when you're working closely with that person, they're available, during the full workday too. That would be the best way to learn. But I do recognize the fact that not everybody is lucky enough to be in an environment like that. But at least you have a couple of other options if you're in that situation. Okay. I hope for all of you folks here that this has kind of given you a good sense of what strategic analysis is. Okay. Kian says, thank you. Are you going to coach us all for free? I wish I could, Kian. Right after I jump off of here, I got to get back into my client's work because this hour that I'm here with you folks right now is an hour that I'm not working for my client and I have to kind of bill. I have to get back to do that so I can actually get their job done and I can bill my clients for the hours that I work with them. Uh, but yeah, I wish I could coach everybody for free. Unfortunately, it's not a possibility at this point. Um, so hopefully this has kind of given you guys a good sense. I did earlier say that I would pull up that LinkedIn post to show you what it was about. I'll quickly show it to you, and then what I think we can do, Ajay, is to we can maybe wrap it up and see if there's any other questions. I'll quickly pull up that LinkedIn post that we had. So basically, what I said earlier today, right? I posted this about 6 hours ago, just this morning. I said I was shocked at what my client said to me yesterday. Okay, so spend a little bit more time fleshing out the following areas of the current state if you can. And the reason why that shocked me is because this current state analysis that I talked about a little bit earlier on, right down here, this current state analysis, most of my clients, they do not want to give me any time to do any of this. Okay. Most of the time, when you're in the real world, okay, your clients are often not willing to spend a lot of time on the current state. Okay. What they want you to build them a roadmap. They want you to do the future state processes. They want you to create all of the detailed specifications, detailed requirements, right? Very rarely do your customers actually want you to spend any time on current state analysis. That's just an unfortunate fact that we all have to deal with as practitioners in this space. But on this client engagement that I'm on right now, I'm very happy over here because that is what my client is focused on. And the reason why that is because this client understands. They understand the life cycle and they understand the value of doing a current state. Okay. The last time I had this opportunity was way back in 2012. Okay, so this picture that I posted here, this was the last, this was in 2012. That's what my desk looked like in 2012. The last time I had a client or an employer who said, hey, take your time and do a really good current state analysis before we get into the future state. That is a rarity that doesn't exist inside of our profession. Okay, so that's what that post was all about. But what I would say here is for the folks who are here, if we're not already connected on LinkedIn, I'll encourage you to send me a LinkedIn request. What I'll do is I'll just drop this. I'll drop my link in the chat as well. If you want to connect, feel free to do so. Rebecca says, at my current org, BRMs complete strategic analysis tasks and artifacts, and then the project is handed off to the BA to complete the tactical ops tasks. Okay, yep. And that's it's very common. It's very common for things to work that way, but every company will kind of do it a little bit differently. From what I've seen, I've worked at over 10 different places now. And what I tend to see in the industry is that some companies will say, okay, we're going to draw the line here. Okay, we're going to do all of this work before we consider this a project, and then we'll get our analysts on board. Other companies, right, will draw the line here, right? And I think this is what you're saying, Rebecca, is that they do a lot of this stuff here behind the curtain, the way that it's kind of shown here, and then they'll hand it over for the tactical and the operational work. So I've worked at so many different places and I see them kind of splitting it a little bit differently. in my own career, I try to just remain flexible to be able to kind of do all of these things depending on who the client is and what they expect of the engagement that we have. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, Rebecca, because that I think is a really great point. Thanks for offering your valuable time, Emal. Oh, you're very welcome, Kike. Anytime. I just want to say here, this is a great reminder that business analysis starts long before requirements. That's exactly right. I love that point you made. Business analysis starts way before you get down to requirements. Okay, so you summed it up better than I could, Kike, I think, and we could probably leave the conversation off on that note, I would say.
So Emal, I do have a question to you.
Sure.
Yeah. So, in your experience, do your organization actually have a strategic BA work as a distinct skill set, or um, it is still seen as a BA who happens to be, good at it?
So it's tends to be a combination. So what tends to happen in most organizations, okay, if I zoom in here a little bit more, you might have a senior analyst like Ingrid.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody, let's say the senior director over here that she reports into, this person sees that she has kind of like a um, future oriented view of the world, right? Those are the types of analysts that tend to kind of get pulled into the business architect role. Okay. And the business architect looks at the business overall and says, hey, are we structured properly? Does one process end at the right place versus where the other one starts between these two divisions, right? They kind of look at the macro view of the world. And so once you kind of get into the business architect role, you are already inside of the tactical level, sometimes even the strategic level of the organization. So that's how it tends to work is that you might start your career off just writing user stories and specs. What I recommend for business analysts always to do is to always just have a very future oriented view of the world and to make sure your manager understands that your mind works that way. And that oftentimes what tends to happen is that when management, you one thing you should always understand, management is always thinking about what's called succession planning, right? So
Yeah.
Tyler up here, right? This guy up here, he's in the back of his mind, he's saying, hey, what happens if Shauna gets a better job somewhere else? Who's going to fill that role? Right.
Yeah.
And he is constantly keeping an eye on all of the other analysts that he has within his group to so that he doesn't get taken off guard. He doesn't get taken by surprise if Shauna ever leaves the company. Right. Management is always in that frame of mind. And so you have to kind of position yourself and you have to take some actions in your day-to-day work just to make sure that they understand that you're ready to take this role, right? And so what I used to do in my career is I would be very just blunt about it with my managers. I'd say, hey, you know, I want that position. If that person ever leaves, I would just say it flat out, right? There are probably more graceful ways of kind of doing that, and I know there are because there are some tactics that I see people using. But the important point is that you want to have visibility, right? Even if somebody like an Irina up here, she should know, right? She should know that Shauna's
Yeah.
ready to take Tyrell's position if Tyrell ever decides to leave, right? So I would say that that's probably the best thing you can do, and
Yeah.
that's how succession works. That's how promotions work in most large organizations, is that there's succession planning that's happening all the time, and you need to just position yourself really well in front of management. There
Yeah.
are a couple of other questions. I'm happy to stay a couple of extra minutes if we need to. Chai says, would you be able to recommend where we can find some sample deliverables from strategy analysis work if we cannot find a coach within our company? I haven't found it um, anywhere really that explains it. So I've actually just built those courses myself. Chai, that's basically the best way I could describe it because my entire career, I've been waiting for somebody to kind of build a training program that explains it in the way that I'm kind of explaining it to you all here. That I haven't found it. So our BAPC course is going to have a lot of those strategic courses. The alpha course actually gives you examples of a current state and a future state, but it does it in a narrative form our where Ingrid inside of that course, what Ingrid is doing as she's trying to onboard Justin into the team, she's walking him through all of these deliverables and explaining her rationale behind why she designed them the way that she did. So there's no other course that I can think of. Sorry, I don't mean to be. I don't mean to direct you directly to our own courses, but the reason why I built these courses is because they don't exist anywhere else. So that's the only place I could point you to right now. If I could, I'm under non-disclosure agreements with my clients, so I can't actually show you what I'm producing for my clients, but that would probably be an even better example. But the next best thing is the stuff that the stuff that Ingrid is teaching to the analysts as she's onboarding them. Kiki says, as product owners take on more responsibility for product discovery and backlog management, how have you seen the relationship between the product owner and the business analyst evolve? Business analysts, that requires a long conversation. I'll have a conversation with James and Ajay to see if I can come back, and we should probably start the conversation right at that point. And I'll just walk you all through through that, Kike. But that's a bit of a long conversation for us to have. But I am going to take a screenshot of that, and I am going to send it to both James and Ajay right now, and see if we can come up with, for another session, if that's okay with you all. I do have to drop, folks. It's 2 o'clock exactly at my time here. I got to get back to my client meeting because I gotta run a session in an hour. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to come and join here today. Hopefully, we'll put something together again, and I'll come back and I can try to answer as many of your questions as we all have. I'm going to take a screenshot of these, Ajay, and I'll send this to both yourself and James, if that's okay.
Please do. Yeah.
Excellent.
So, yeah. So thank you so much, Emal. That was a real and insightful session, to be honest. And just to be mindful of the people's time because it's almost the time we have to be, ending the call. And the list of questions are captured and will be sent directly to Emal. Okay. If anyone have any question, they can put in the chat. I'm gonna send them to Emal, and all the answers will be sent out to the attendees. Also, I mean, it's also quite late here in Ireland. So, I mean, thanks so much again for speaking on behalf of IIBA Ireland, Emal. And thank you so much, everyone who sticked around and for attending. Um, I'll get the slides as well of Emal and I'll share them along with the answers to the questions. And
For the
please keep
slides,
an
Ajay,
eye.
I'll say
Yeah.
for the slide, folks, you can just go straight to there and you have access to them right away, even right now. So,
Oh, yeah,
uh,
that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Also, I would like to request keep your eye on our LinkedIn page for the next day in life of a BA. And um, yeah, enjoy your evening, your afternoon, morning, or wherever you're joining from. And thank you so much, everyone. I look forward to getting your questions and answering them and getting them back to you. Um, uh, all right. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
bye, guys. Take care, everybody.